Good evening, I'm Kathy Lewis. Welcome to What Matters. Every 20 minutes, a child in the United States is diagnosed with autism. Across the country and right here in Hampton Roads, school systems are struggling to meet the intensive and expensive needs of a population that in many areas has doubled in just the past 7 years. Tonight, we take you into the home of a Hampton Roads family living with autism. Lisa Godley has the story of a day in the life of Isabelle McMillan.
Isabelle McMillan is an adorable, energetic 5-year-old who loves Barney.
What's that, Barney?
And like most children her age, when her favorite show is on, it easily captures her attention. But unlike other 5-year-olds, Barney is pretty much all Isabelle ever wants to watch, because Isabelle is autistic. According to the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, there are 3 common signs of autism. Children having difficulty interacting socially, difficulty with verbal and nonverbal communication, as well as repetitive behaviors or narrow obsessive interest, and it can range from mild to disabling. Remember Isabelle and Barney? Alan and Teresa McMillan used Barney to help Isabelle learn, like putting together this Barney puzzle. But if she'd rather be watching the video, it isn't easy.
Come here. We'll go watch Barney after we finish the puzzle, okay? Come on. Come on. Where does this one go?
Teresa says the family first started noticing erratic behavior in Isabelle when she was 18 months old while on vacation in Florida.
We were in the airport. It was a Thursday, and she was acting like a nut, just off the hook, running around. My other 2 kids were pretty calm, and they were looking at us like, "You're gonna let her run like that?"
Teresa says she and Alan dismissed their daughter's strange behavior as Isabelle being tired after sitting on a long flight. But once back home, their daughter's odd behavior did not stop.
Shortly after returning, we went to a bridal shower, baby shower, and she went to each table and knocked everything off the table at the shower. So we knew something was off then.
Having studied some psychology, Teresa decided to give Isabelle a test. She wanted to see if her daughter would respond to her name. So one day, while Isabelle was watching a Barney video in the car, Teresa turned it off.
I said, "Isabelle, Isabelle." And normally at that point she'd start kicking and screaming because the video was off. But she didn't do anything. She just looked off to the side, and I called out her name, and nothing happened.
It was time to bring in the experts. After examining Isabelle, the pediatrician looked at Teresa with sadness. What would follow were months of seeing specialists to eliminate all other possibilities. Then finally, the official diagnosis: autism.
Wow, wait a minute. I carried this baby all the way through delivery. I have her. She's developing fine, and all of a sudden you're telling me she's gone?
That was in 2002, and Teresa says there weren't a lot of doctors in the area who specialized in autism. But the McMillans were determined to get help for their daughter. They did their research, got Isabelle into therapy. They also found a child care attendant who could not only watch their daughter, but teach her. Since Alana Nosar has been working with Isabelle, she's gone from sign language and no vocabulary to learning 75 different words.
When I first started, this would not happen. She would be back and forth, grabbing everything off the counter, spilling cereal, trying to get in the fridge to grab the mustard, to grab the pickles, or whatever was in there.
Where you want bubbles? You say bubbles? Bubbles. Yeah.
In the beginning, the McMillans were spending about $2,000 a month for Isabelle's medications, doctor's visits, therapy, and child care attendant. They thought because of their income, they'd never qualify for any type of assistance. But then Teresa discovered EDCD Medicaid waiver for the elderly and disabled. It wasn't based on their income, but Isabelle's. And now Teresa tells everyone she meets that there is financial help out there.
You say 1, 2, buckle my. 3, 4, shut the. 5, 6, pick up.
Even with help, every day with Isabelle is a challenge, full of uncertainties and tribulations. But the McMillans are thankful for each progress that brings their little girl closer to her fullest potential.
You say, I love
You.
you. Yes, I love you.
For What Matters, I'm Lisa Godley.
Do the puzzle.
And joining us tonight to talk more about autism and what it means for all of us are Dr. Eric Madron. He's a physician, but he also has a child with autism. Jan Solak is the parent of 15-year-old Alex, who has autism and attends Bayside High School in Virginia Beach. And Cassandra Newsom is a psychologist with the Virginia Beach public school system. She works extensively with children with autism. Thanks to all of you for being with us tonight. Dr. Madron, I want to start with you because one of the things that we noted at the top of the show is that the incidence of autism, or certainly the diagnosis in this area and across the country, is increasing pretty dramatically. 50 new students in Norfolk, Virginia Beach looking at $700,000 new budget dollars for teachers. What's going on?
The incidence of autism has been exploding in the last decade, perhaps the last 2 decades, certainly nationwide, worldwide. It's certainly not a local problem, but it hits home here for us for sure. The estimates that certainly have been publicized perhaps are even underestimates, and the incidence may in fact even be higher than each time we see new statistics. In fact, they are usually that these statistics say that now it's more common than it had been even a few years ago.
So what do we think is behind those numbers? Why do we see this increase?
There's a lot of debate about what might be underlying the increased incidence of autism, and I don't think anybody really knows the true answer. In the past, a lot of the research in autism was searching for the autism gene, that it must be a genetic disorder, and I think that theory has been pretty well dispelled at this point. There's clearly a genetic factor because we have family members oftentimes with autistic siblings, for example, in the same family, so there appears to be a genetic factor, but it's not a purely genetic disorder. The current hypothesis that appears to be most plausible is that there is a genetic predisposition, and then coupled that with perhaps some sort of toxic insult that tips over the child into the spectrum of autism.
Toxic insult, like what?
And that is yet another debate about what exactly the toxic insults might be. Different theories that abound about whether the child doesn't process certain food substances properly, whether the child doesn't process exposure to certain chemicals. Vaccines, as you're well aware, have been hotly debated as a potential implicating factor. Preservatives in vaccines, which contain heavy metals, for example.
Do you have the I mean, it just seems to me when you look at the numbers in this community, just the sheer human numbers, then you look at the budget dollars to support that both in cities and in states. Do you have the sense that there is enough research underway to figure out why this explosive growth and what to do about it to match the degree of intensity in the growth?
In the last couple of years, it does seem that autism is getting more and more attention. Actually, thanks to public radio and public television, for example. We're getting more word out in the community of how significant a problem this is, and that's wonderful. We're not there yet, though, in terms of research dollars. And there's, I think the public is becoming more and more aware of how big of a problem this is, though, and I think the tide is starting to turn.
Jan Solak is with us tonight as well, and she, as we told you earlier, is the parent of a 15-year-old son, Alex, who has autism, goes to Bayside High School. Is Alex your only child?
No, I have an 8-year-old daughter,
8-year-old
Maddie.
daughter as well. And so when you got this diagnosis with Alex, was it a similar story to the one we heard from the McMillans, in that there was behavior that was concerning to you?
Alex actually wasn't diagnosed with autism until he was 3.5.
I see.
He actually talked until he was 2.5. And 2 weeks after having vaccines, ran a fever, and we didn't think anything about it. He had, before that, had been very ill, very sick, with different things. But we were stationed in Meridian, Mississippi, and it wasn't until we got a hardship transfer back to Norfolk that we got the diagnosis of autism.
You know, that seems to me to be the most heartbreaking thing about this this condition, is that your child is speaking and talking and interacting normally 1 minute, and then, as you heard Mrs. McMillan say, it's as if they're gone.
And for Alex, he was actually in speech therapy at the time. Had a about 100-word vocabulary documented by a speech therapist. So, and at the time we got the diagnosis, which was 12 years ago now, it was we were told it was 1 in 10,000.
Wow. And I'm sure your phone rings quite often with other people looking for information and resources, because those of you who have walked this road for a while are a real resource to those who are new to it.
There's been plenty that walked the road, and even starting in the 70s. I'm a board member for the Tidewater Autism Society, and there a lot of times refer there. We refer out to Dr. Madron as one of our resources in this local community, but trying to get the awareness out. And there are services, but we need more in working on our awareness as well as our accuracy to make sure.
Because the truth of this is, just as it is with many other special education conditions, you have to know how to navigate the system, and that's why other people who've been there can be such a valuable resource. I know that your son is celebrating a birthday soon. Right?
Tuesday.
He's almost 15.
He's almost 15.
Yeah. and you said that birthdays are particularly hard.
They are. They're your milestones. I will try to say this without choking up, but it's when you look back over the last year, like, okay, what did he do? What did he didn't do? Similar, I guess, when you go to developmental checkups in the beginning, first year, second year, what are they doing, what are they not doing? But the past 2 years, because Alex has made progress, and tremendous progress in his communication skills. He's actually signing. He has about 75 words he signs now. And it's just opened up a whole different area for him.
Yeah.
So.
And of course, Alex and children like him, there is this wide range of the ways in which autism presents itself. And Cassandra Newsom is a psychologist with the Virginia Beach school system. We talk about autism and Asperger's, and can you sort of differentiate those for us?
Yes. Autism, we now kind of understand, is on a spectrum. So there's a full continuum of symptomatology. And so there are children who have more significant impairments, and then children who are on the milder end. Children with Asperger's are considered on the milder end of autism, but one of the hallmark differences between autism and Asperger's is there's not the significant language delay in early childhood. Children with Asperger's have communication and don't lose that communication. They may have more difficulty with the social aspects of communication, so carrying on a conversation and maintaining topic, but they don't have the loss of language that children with autism do.
And so as a school professional who works at trying to provide services, because that is your obligation, the school system's obligation is to educate every child who gets off the bus, and some who have to be brought. I mean, that is the obligation. How do you go about managing what seem to be diminishing resources only by virtue of the fact that you have so many more children now eligible for services?
Well, I think if you think about the saying, teach a man to fish, and that's one of the things that we're trying to do in Virginia Beach schools, is we have a program where we're providing consultation to teachers and parents and other professionals within the district. So we're going into the classrooms where the children are being served currently and trying to provide interventions and recommendations. We're also providing diagnostic assessment services for children with autism through a multidisciplinary team, so that we have a better understanding of each child's unique strengths and weaknesses, so that their IEPs and their educational plans can be more tailored for them individually. And we're also providing district-wide training to our teachers, so that it's not just our teachers who are working in classrooms just for children specifically who have autism, but children with autism are served throughout the district in all different types of classrooms. And so we want to make sure that our teachers are well prepared and well informed, regardless of who walks into the door, that they're able to meet those needs. So we do have some specialized classrooms for children with autism who need more intensive services, but we're also working towards being able to include those children who can be included in less restrictive settings by providing teacher training.
Does this make sense to you, Dr. Madronos, as a parent of a child with autism and as a physician who works with these issues? Is this the right approach?
I think certainly what Cassandra is saying about the educating the child in the least restrictive environment is very much the appropriate way to approach this. My child is also in the public school system. We've been very pleased with the services that have been provided for him over the years. And he's been able to thrive in a regular education classroom. He still gets some special education services, but as the years have gone by, he's needed fewer and fewer services, so he's very much a part of the community.
And I guess the question is, too, we have a couple of schools in this community that specialize in autism services, and clearly this is such a wide spectrum. You have children who fall at every end of it and all along it. But would it make sense, and perhaps I'm asking you a question that politically you may not want to answer, so maybe I'll turn over here and ask this to Jan, if you don't mind. I appreciate your realities. Jan Salk, do we have a situation here where it may make sense to put a couple of kids who could be good matches for these private institutions of learning that are specializing in autism? Does it make sense just to take some of those kids and say, you know what, instead of hiring all the teachers and all the support staff that you need, why don't we take you, and you, since you will seem to do well in this environment, and why don't we just put you over there? And the school system pays the money to the private school to do that.
I do think there are situations where that is. I actually also serve on the Virginia Beach Special Education Advisory Committee, where we're advising the school board on the unmet needs. And there's been times when we've even considered it for our son Alex.
Really?
But because we receive services at home and we actually run a home program that's intense, we try to do it in collaboration with the school as well.
And Alex is going to be 15. What will his situation be down the road? As parents of a disabled child, you have to think about that, and I know you have been.
Well, we have been. We are definitely looking at the future and working from his strengths, not his weaknesses, which I think is very important for the school district to look at as well. It's very easy to want to say, well, let's fix this part. Well, he may never drive.
Right.
That doesn't mean he can't hold a job or that he can't own his own business.
Right.
Actually, for Alex, figuring out what his strengths are. Alex loves to go. He's actually very social, even though he's nonverbal. He does sign, like I said, but very social. He loves to be with people. So in that aspect, he doesn't follow someone who maybe has Asperger's.
Yeah.
That isn't social.
Makes this
so it's very complex.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So he loves to go. And doesn't care where, and likes to be around other people. Because the business that I own, which is a title real estate business, we hire people to come pick up packages and drop them off locally. With supported employment, Alex could own his own courier service. And I know, and because I'm working with the business community to say we have this whole segment of population that's coming up that will specialize skills. They will be there every day.
Right.
Exactly. You have to
rain
close
or
the
shine.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Hurricane, it doesn't matter. They're going to show up at 8 o'clock if you said 8 o'clock.
Right. Yeah.
And they're not going to take break to 10:15.
Right.
And they're going to do, and it's going to be perfect because they can't stand it any other way.
Yeah.
So they have
so you
specialized
match those skills.
Right.
Yeah.
And just educating and awareness to the business community, to the educators, like what skills do we need to look at to teach Alex? Like one of the things we're looking at is, okay, if he had someone to drive him and he needed GPS, because we need to teach him how to type in to a keyboard the addresses. He could match the numbers up. That's a skill we could teach him to do. And he'd truly be controlling his own business and where he's going. And he loves maps and he loves things like that, so it goes well with the going part.
Right. That's pretty good.
Right behind Chip, the sign
Sure.
for go was the next one.
see, you seem to be somebody who really looks at this from the perspective of what's best for her child, and I know probably most parents have that in them. But you are a person who has educational resources and emotional resources and financial resources to bring to bear on this issue. How often do you get calls from people who don't have one or more of those things?
Well, I don't know about the financial resources, but we do. We get a lot of phone calls where parents are overwhelmed. In the beginning, it can be very intense. It's your dreams and your hopes for that child are going to be different, and that's true for my other child as well. And I think that's true. I mean, we all think when they're babies, they're going to grow up and be, the president or the ruler of the world or queen or something, but in actuality, we have years to come to terms and want them to be their own individual. So a lot of times the first part I would start, well, what's your biggest concern today? And let me see how I can help match that need for you. And sometimes it might be that there's some medical issues that they haven't even thought of. They've been so busy surviving that they haven't even considered that this is out of the norm, but could be a complication from the autism. My son, Alex, to give you an example of what I'm talking about, is Alex has digestive issues. I had a child that was throwing up 2 to 3 times a week at school. And I didn't ever talk to the developmental pediatrician that we had. It was at the Navy at the time, until the day he threw up in his office. And I'm pulling out extra clothes and wipies, and I've got an extra shirt for me. And he's like, wait a minute, how often does this happen?
Connecting that to autism.
I didn't even think about it. I was so busy surviving, and the school system hadn't. I mean, it hadn't occurred to them either, because I'd just send extra clothes in all the time, and they would take care of it. And he was like, "You need to see a GI doc." So one of the things I did once we were seeing a GI doc from CHKD was I convinced her to do some continuing medical education to pediatricians and general practitioners to say, you don't know what a relief it was that day he said, this is not normal. We can do something.
We can fix this,
We can fix it. We can make it better.
Sure.
Or let's work on this and think about how much better your life will be. And that it's not a death sentence. I think that's the hardest thing I have from parents that I hear. It's like, he's still your child. And you know what? If you go over to hematology oncology, my son also has a bleeding disorder, which does not mix well with autism because he has no safety skills and no fear of anything. We worked on that, and now he's much better, but in the beginning it was tough. And you sit there and you see these kids that are, do have bleeding disorders and sickle cell and they have cancer. That's a death sentence for a lot of us, and a pain sentence because they're in pain. Alex is a very happy child. And he has a good life, and he can have a better life. So.
Dr. Madron, as you hear Jan talk about this, I guess that is a piece of it. Parents at some point either come to grips or they don't with what the situation is.
Parents of autistic children are amazing people. They are almost without exception, incredibly devoted to their child and willing to pursue all avenues to help improve their child's level of functioning. Jan alluded to the gastrointestinal symptoms that have plagued her son, and I'd like to highlight that for a moment because that's actually incredibly common.
Really?
Well over half of the children that I see who are on the spectrum of autism have some sort of bowel issues, whether it be diarrhea, constipation, vomiting, gas, bloating, you name it. We see it all, but you have to deal with that because you're not going to get the child's level of functioning to improve until you've dealt with those bowel issues.
How many of us have had those issues and couldn't concentrate and focus on much of anything until they got them resolved? Really, it makes perfect sense. And of course, with the communication challenges, one can see where that would be difficult. But knowing that that's a piece of it is probably very helpful as well, or can be a piece of it. It's just fascinating, and it's one of those things where you can never know too much because all of it comes to bear in the conversation. Well, Dr. Madron, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Good to see you again. Thank you for being here. Jan Solak, thanks for being here, and happy birthday to Alex, and hope that's an easier day for you. And Cassandra Newsom, thank you for joining us as well. It'll be interesting to see how the school systems begin to respond to some of these issues. I shouldn't say begin to respond, I should say continue to respond. Because in truth, they have been responding. It's just that the issue is coming at them faster and in greater numbers than before, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens. I'll be back in a moment with a final thought. There are hundreds of families like the Solaks and the McMillans living with autism today and looking to an uncertain future as their children grow into adulthood and caregivers grow into old age. Like many disabling conditions, it can be devastating to families. Many just can't hold up under the strain. You've heard from some tonight who have held up under the strain quite well. But the same might be said for school systems. As the population of children with autism grows, one wonders whether school systems can hold up under the strain of educating children all along that spectrum of autism, especially those at the more severe end of the spectrum. There are specialized schools for autism. We talked about some of them this evening, the Lincoln Academy in Virginia Beach, Rivers Bend in Suffolk, and they are expensive. But consider that Virginia Beach alone needs 16 new teachers, $700,000 budget dollars to deal with the growing number of students with autism. Other Hampton Roads cities are, of course, in the same boat, so it seems there may be an opportunity for some sort of shared initiative one that might evolve to include employment options and vocational training opportunities, one that might even be helped with an autism summit from neighboring communities. At the rate autism is increasing, it's one idea that at least merits a closer look. Thanks for being with us tonight. We want to let you know that you can write to us. We'd love to have your ideas on autism or any of the other issues that we cover here on What Matters. Write to us at 5200 Hampton Boulevard, Norfolk, Virginia 23508. You can call us at 889-9437. And you can also check out our website at whatmatters.tv, and there you will be able to post your own thoughts and join our online community. And so we hope you'll do that. It's a neat thing to do, to go back and check on some shows that you may have missed. Thanks so very much for joining us this week. We'll see you again next week to talk about what matters.